No Place for Truth, or Whatever Happened to Evangelical Theology, a book by David F. Wells. Chapter 1, Part 1. A Delicious Paradise Lost. Thomas Jefferson. Those who labor in the earth are a chosen people of God, if ever he had a chosen people, whose breasts he has made his peculiar deposit for substantial and genuine virtue. Quote by Arthur Schlesinger, Jr. History is a constant tragedy in which we are all involved, whose keynote is frustration and anxiety, and not progress and fulfillment. The main street in Wenham, Massachusetts has witnessed the most astounding revolution that has occurred in this or any other century. This street, which is built on an old stagecoach route and today is graced by the presence of old trees and antique houses from the 17th and 18th centuries, is actually more of a vantage point than a witness. It is from here and from within these houses that families have looked on a world that has changed before their eyes. Revolution is not, of course, the word that naturally comes to mind when one walks through Wenham today, unless perhaps one should glance along Larch Row, which turns off Main Street, where Ezra Loomis's old tavern still stands. The tavern has long since abandoned its trade, but during the past century it was an important stopping place for stagecoaches along the Newbury Turnpike, which, Adeline Cole tells us, shot a straight line from Boston over hill, brook, and ravine to its destination, Newburyport. At this tavern, horses were changed, and travelers wandering about the hills and ravines ahead could revive themselves with a shot of West Indian rum, for which the tavern was well known. Down the street that bounds the north side of the old tavern, Larch Row, one is greeted by the sight of European larches, twisted and gnarled by many a wintry storm, and said by old-timers to have been planted during the Revolution. But that was a long time ago, and most people do not know that. What they see is simply a quaint New England town that is now fiercely protective of its heritage. If the hamburger merchants want to service the good people of Wenham, they must do so from a distance. And those who own the antique houses on the street can make changes only with permission. The townsfolk see the evening news on television and learn a lot about the day's crime, but it mostly happens in Boston, seldom in Wenham. Here the cops seem to have so little to do that they can give their undivided attention to careless motorists. In Wenham, inattention to the posted speed limits is never wise. Wenham is a decent, solidly middle-class town, an enclave of civility in the midst of a nasty world. A town with old families, old money, and still quite a few old ideas. The more one knows about this little town, the more incongruous the idea of revolution seems. But the truth is that few of the townsfolk would even remotely recognize the world of 1870 if we could take them back to it. Though they're often traditional people, they, like everyone else, are now part of the modern world. Since that time, the country's industrial output has increased almost 5,000%. It has created the material basis for what utopians used to dream about, and paradoxically, it has also brought a world of despair and complexity that few fully understand. In its multiple daily assaults upon the individual, it is rending the fabric of private consciousness. Wenham is not a typical town today, indeed, has never been. Nor indeed has it ever been. Occupying 7 square miles with boundaries that have never changed, it was in the 18th and 19th centuries part of a line of farming towns that had trading links with and were serviced by seaports as Beverly, Salem, and Gloucester. The farming towns produced grain crops, livestock, and poultry. The seaports offered the services that these small agricultural communities needed, such as facilities for shipping, warehouses, and fish markets. Their economies, social organization, and existence differed, and no one town was exactly like another. Furthermore, America in the 19th century to which we need to look back in particular, was bursting with new life, ideas, inventions, and disagreements, all of which affected each town and city differently. It is, therefore, impossible to find a single paradigm for understanding the American experience. One place that might serve as a crucible in which these changes could be examined in ways that would be applicable to everyone else. That, as a matter of fact, is why Wenham is so interesting. While the rest of America was being roiled by change, Wenham was an astonishing island of tranquility, a little town that seemed to have its own internal gyroscope, that seemed to treasure its capacity for being oblivious to the outside world, even though it's situated only 25 miles north of Boston. It's because Wenham has not been typical of other towns and its residents have not been typical of other Americans that it provides a fascinating aperture through which to observe some of the great changes that have engulfed our world. End of Part 1, Chapter 1, page 19.